All right, everybody, let's get started. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences. Welcome into the SECU Daily Planet Theater, or welcome onto the museum's YouTube channel if you are tuned in there for today's edition of Dino Dig Live. Every summer, the museum's paleontology crew, the folks that you could see working in the third floor paleontology research lab here or working right next door to our theater, in the Dueling Dinosaurs experience in the SECU Dino Lab, head out, well, all over the world, really, but the majority of the teams go out west here in the U.S., and they go looking for evidence of ancient life. They go looking for fossils that they can dig up and bring back here to the museum to study and help us answer questions about the way the world used to be millions and millions of years ago. But if they can find some cell service while they're out there in the West, working in the desert and in the Badlands and in these really interesting environments like they're calling in from today, they will give us a call and share with us the updates, interesting discoveries they've made, and just talk a little bit about what's going on and what it's like to be a paleontologist from a museum working out in the field collecting fossils, collecting evidence of ancient life. My name is Chris Smith. I'm your coordinator for current science programs. I'm your host for programs here in the Daily Planet Theater. And joining me up here on the big screen and online is Eric Lund. Eric is the manager for the SECU Dino Lab. He is the one who's running the operations in the Dueling Dinosaur space. Eric, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chris. It's really great to call in.
Or yeah, I guess thanks for being there and then calling in. Give us an update. Go ahead, give us the scoop. Where are you at and what have you got going on?
Yeah, so right now we're in southern part of Utah, in an area that's called Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. It's which encompasses about 2 million acres of beautiful badland type wilderness terrain. And much of the rocks that make up this area are full of fossils. And so we're out here checking out a particular formation this time called the Straight Cliffs. Straight Cliffs represent a time period in the late Cretaceous, about 90 million to 82 million years old, and represent what would have been environments of near shore places. So back then during the Cretaceous, North America was divided into two landmasses by a big shallow seaway called the Western Interior Seaway. And these environments that we're working in would have represented all of the big rivers and swampy areas right along those shorelines of that Western Interior Basin. And what you see behind me is a particular quarry that was found several years ago by a colleague of ours. And so far what we're digging up are some bones of an armored dinosaur, perhaps a nodosaur or an ankylosaur.
Oh, very exciting stuff. So this is so you're working in a quarry, a dig site that was discovered a while back. How long have we been working on this site?
Yeah, this is the first year. So we initially came out here to check it out and see how much was here. And so we're really just literally scratching the surface to see what bones we can find. Unfortunately, a little bit, there's been a bunch of modern plants that have grown over top of this quarry, sent the roots down. And so a lot of the bones that we're finding right now are covered in root mass. But what that means for us is many of those bones have already been started to be degraded. But as we dig back into the hill, we're hoping to find some better and better bone.
How many fossils do you think you found so far? How good is the digging going for these remains?
Yeah, so the digging actually is great. We find bits of bone every day that we're digging out here. So the accumulation and the bone density is pretty good. The quality of that bone, like I said, is on the lower side. But we're starting on one side of the quarry, we're starting to get some bigger elements, some bigger pieces that are less damaged by those roots.
Interesting stuff. I'm used to when we talk to the paleontologists here at the museum and when you call in, normally you're in very rocky environments, or you're chiseling fossils. It looks like just straight out of mudstone or sandstone. This looks like a very different environment than what I'm used to seeing out of the museum, or than people might see that say the dueling dinosaur specimens are encased in the SECU Dino Lab.
Yep. So this is very similar to that, although we're sitting on top of a plateau here, and this plateau just happens to be a great place for these beautiful juniper trees to grow, as well as big sagebrush and some creosote bushes. But we are still excavating down through rock. We're working through some sandstone layers and working in some muddy lenses as well.
Oh, okay, I see. A great place to be a tree in this environment.
Exactly. But we love these trees because they provide us some shade.
Yeah, I was going to ask, it looks like a beautiful day in Utah there, but I also have this imagination that says it's probably like 250 degrees outside. Am I right?
So it actually we've hit the sweet spot right now. Our days have been in the upper 80s. Our nights have been getting down into the upper 40s, low 50s. So it's absolutely perfect. We've had no rain. Um, it's just been fantastic. The A few weeks before coming out here, it was about 2 million degrees. But we hit the sweet spot.
Can you send some of that to Raleigh? I would like a mid 80s degree day, I think, coming up.
You need
We're
a
about
cool
to hit a
down.
heat wave. Yeah, we could use a cool down already. If you're here with me inside the Daily Planet Theater, I want to let you know that you can ask your questions of our paleontologists, of our experts. If you're here on the first floor, you can just wave at me, ask your question, and I'll repeat it into the program using the microphone. You can also come up on stage and talk directly to Eric using the microphone yourself if you'd like to. If you're watching on YouTube on the museum's live stream, you can type your questions into the chat. I have that pulled up, and I'm monitoring those so that I can share your thoughts and questions into the program as well. Just wave at me at any point if something comes up and you want to know more about it. Balconies, same thing, just wave down at me and then yell at me, and we'll repeat your questions into the program. So, Eric, you said that you think you found what is some kind of armored dinosaur. What's the evidence for that? How do you know, having just started working on this quarry, what kind of animals you're beginning to find?
Yep. So we know this from the pieces that we've seen that have already weathered out of the rock. So we found quite a few chunks of what's called osteoderms, or those bony plates that are in the back of these armored dinosaurs. And so that gives us a clue as to what's here. But we've also found some other osteoderms, some that belong to ancient crocodiles. We've got one fish scale out of this quarry as well. And so we're finding just an assemblage of other things besides dinosaurs. But it's those osteoderms that tell us we think this is mostly one of those armored dinosaurs.
How big are these pieces? Like, I think of a crocodile osteoderm, a bony plate in a crocodile's body, and they're 2 or 3 inches wide in diameter, something like that, depending on the size of the croc. How big are these armored plates you're finding?
Yeah, so far, some of the ones we've been finding are about golf ball sized to baseball sized pieces of bone. And so we're hoping that as we find more, that they get bigger, because some of these osteoderms and these armored dinosaurs get dinner plate size and are really cool. But we have yet to uncover ones that big. But yeah, golf ball to baseball size.
And how did you decide to go spend time during this field season in this spot? Was it evidence of these armored dinosaurs and you wanted to collect that and study more about them? Or is it random? I know it's not random. How did you decide to go to this site for this summer?
Yeah, so working in the Straight Cliffs is a time period that we don't know a lot about the ecology and the ecosystem here. So us working out here and the things we're finding is really starting to help us fill in that informational gap of the late Cretaceous during this time. So a lot of the things that we're finding most likely are going to be brand new to science, which is really, really cool. And to be some of the first, not the first people to work out here, there's been other groups, but to get in here and start working and start making these discoveries is pretty great.
Can you give us a little, since we can see the quarry, we can see some of the team working there. From where you're at, can we get a little tour of what you've got going on, what your colleagues there are working on, how big the quarry is?
Yeah, so as you see behind me, the quarry right now is maybe 5 meters across, and 2 meters deep. Um, Very little overburden, meaning we've only had to dig down about a half a meter through the sediment to get down to the bone layer. But most people are working on a lot of bits of ribs, starting to get some limb elements in here, but only sections of those limbs. And so if you can see over here, we've got John Knipe. So he's a PhD student with Dr. Terry Gates at NC State. Working in the middle there is Dr. Josh Hedge. He's at Lake Forest. He is a professor there up in Chicago. And then way up in the back is our newest PhD student, Heath Caldwell. So he'll be in the Xano lab and he's working on bits of ribs as well.
Sounds like quite the team. Is everyone on the team like an expert paleontologist, or do you have different expertise coming out on the field season on the trip this year?
Oh, yeah, certainly have different expertise. We've, students to, we've got some professional geologists out with us as well. And so it's a wide range, but this is certainly an A team of people out here helping us dig this animal up.
Awesome stuff. So let me take a look at the chat here. One of the first questions that's come in, the people always want to know, Eric, what's your favorite dinosaur?
My favorite dinosaur. So my favorite dinosaur is an animal called Nasutoceratops, which is a horned dinosaur related to Triceratops, but predates Triceratops by about 10 million years. And the reason it's my favorite is I found the very first one, the holotype specimen, not too far from here, in a different formation called the Kaparowitz, which is a bit farther south of where we are currently. And just a matter of fact, yesterday I just happened to be back in that same area, digging up a different dinosaur from that same formation, not too far away from where I found Nasutoceratops.
Was it nostalgic?
Oh, it was. Yeah, brought back a lot of great memories.
I love that. Nasutoceratops. Uh, Geminicus Rex on YouTube wants to know if you know whether or not this armored dinosaur is an ankylosaur or a nodosaur yet.
Don't know yet. We don't have enough of those osteoderms uh, to be able to tell. For example, we haven't found any of the shoulder spikes that would be indicative more of a nodosaurid, or we haven't found that tail club, which would be more of an ankylosaurid feature. So no, not yet. We don't know. We just know that it's some type of armored dinosaur from the few scutes that we have found.
I see. How much of, say, the skeleton of this animal do you think you've uncovered so far? Not very much?
Oh goodness, yeah, not very much, not very much at all. I would say, maybe 5%. We've got lots of bits of bone, but we don't have, much of the animal.
I see. How much of it do you think you would need in order to make an assessment on what species it is, or if it's a new species that you need to describe?
Yeah, it'd be great to start getting some skulls, so at least a few of the skull elements. That would really help. And then again, maybe find some of these big shoulder spikes, or be really cool, find that tail club, which would be pretty awesome. So we actually don't need a whole lot to be able to sort of pinpoint that down, narrow that down, but certainly more than the single digit percentage that we have now.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Stephen online says that their 4-year-old wonders if you know what kind of fish the scale belongs to.
Oh, yes. So certainly, yep. So it was a gar scale. Um, and we always joke when we find a gar scale that it was just one single gar shedding its scales out here. But yes, it was a gar, and if you can visit the museum, you can actually go check out some garfish over in the Nature Education Center and see what those look like.
Yeah, that's right. We have 4 live gar in the aquarium on the second floor in the other building of the museum. Go check them out. They're cool. But so how do you know it's a gar scale?
Yep. So just by the morphology or the shape of that scale, and then also through experience, I've seen thousands and thousands of gar scales. So, but gar scales do have a particular shape.
Okay, so they look different than other type of fish scales. It's easy to tell them apart, and they're everywhere. Gar must have been very common in this time period.
Very common fish, it seems like here in the Cretaceous. Yep.
That's amazing. So that would mean gar have been around for at least, you said, 90 million years?
Yep. Long time. Yep. And have
Well,
changed very little, which is pretty awesome.
that's cool. I like that. You could go see a live gar in our aquariums that is related to something ancient from like 100 million years ago. All right, I've got a question for you here inside the globe. Go ahead.
Okay.
Eric, they want to know, what elevation are you working at?
Good question. So we're just about 6,500 feet of elevation here, and we're camping um, down around 6,000 feet elevation. So our hike every day up to this particular quarry, like I said, we're up on a plateau. So and we're not too far from camp. We're about a 3/4 of a mile, maybe a little bit farther than that. But in that 3/4 of a mile, we gain 500 feet of elevation. But yeah, we're right around 6,500 feet.
Getting your steps in every day, it sounds like.
Yes.
Paleontologists always get their steps in, at least in the summertime when they're working in the field. Let's take another question. Great. Excellent question. So, Eric, you mentioned the Western Interior Seaway, this like near shore habitat ecosystem. How long did that seaway exist?
Yep. So that seaway existed from about 100 million years ago, maybe a bit longer, till started to recede and back off about 75 million years ago, somewhere in there. Um, and so the rocks that were in here are during that time when the ocean was still pretty full, but it lasted for quite a long time, dividing North America into two land masses.
Another question for you from the chat. Is it harder to prospect for new quarries with all the trees and roots versus the wide open land like the Badlands that some of the team work in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So um, in order for us to find fossils, we've got to have some erosion, and the trees sort of prevent that from happening. And then, here we're surrounded by these junipers and pines. The ground is littered with pine cones and pine needles. And it's what's happening is it's obscuring the ground surface. So having all of this vegetation around is great for shade, but makes it a little difficult to find fossils. So yeah, those bare slopes of some other places, much easier to find fossils.
How different do the fossils there look compared to the surrounding rock? Are they easy to
Um,
see?
Little bit. So the mudstone that we're working in is sort of this dark gray mudstone, and the bone itself is slightly chocolatey brown. And so as you're working down through, um, you can start to see that brown and see the bone. So this particular quarry, it's fairly easy to distinguish the bone. Although with some of those root mats, like I said, that surround the bones, that obscures things a bit.
Interesting stuff. So it's a little bit tricky. It sounds like it's a little difficult to work in this environment.
It is. It is a little bit difficult, but I've also worked in quarries where the bone is the same color as the rock. It makes it even harder. So
Oh,
I'll
wow.
take this. I'll take this for sure.
Right. Yes, sure. Okay. Another question in the chat for you. We see a grid square behind you. Looks like that the big yellow square leaning up against a tree. Are you getting ready to map the quarry? And how do you do that?
Yep. So we've already been mapping. We've laid out a grid line or a baseline and started mapping off that so we can start taking out some of these bones. So yeah, we've already started mapping. And the way that we do that, again, we set a north-south trending baseline, mark off every meter along that line. And then that sort of gives us the grid that we can use. So then getting two people to hold up that grid, another person to plumb bob. So you can see behind me that grid square. It's got, so the bigger square is subdivided into smaller squares. So hold that grid square horizontally, then someone will drop a plumb bob down through those smaller squares right down to the bone. And then we have someone else who is doing the scribing and actually creating the map and drawing exactly where those bones are within that grid.
Awesome stuff. Great questions, everybody. Additionally, Eric, can you tell us about some of the tools that the team is using to dig up these fossils? Like we can see somebody, looks like they're brushing dirt away from a surface. What does it take to get these things out of the ground?
Yep. So this mudstone's fairly soft. So far we've just been using hand tools. So awls, a variety of paintbrushes, variety of dental picks. So the same dental picks you would get your teeth worked on at the dentist. So we're using all that. Um, so the tools are just normal tools you'd find at a hardware store. But if the rock starts to get harder, we might have to pull out the big guns, might have to drag a jackhammer up here or a rock saw, diamond bladed cutoff saw. But so far, the rock's soft enough that we can just use a rock hammer and an awl and work down through the sediment.
Another question from the room for you. So, Eric, the question for you is when you find these fossilized remains, are they normally in one centralized place, like all together, or are the bones spread out?
Yeah, so it really depends. It's a great question. So this particular quarry, the bones are spread out across that about 5 meter area. And so everything's not together. That's called disarticulated, but things are somewhat closely associated, meaning the bones are, we have this spread of bones that are near each other. Um, but that's in contrast to the dinosaur we were working on yesterday in the Kaperowitz, which was fully articulated, meaning the bones were in life position. And if you want to check out a dinosaur who has bones in life position, go check out the Dino Lab there right next to you and check out the dueling dinosaurs. So both those specimens are articulated. The bones are in life position. And so that was where all the bones were together. But this particular quarry, the bones are all spread out. That's why the quarry is so wide.
Do you have an idea of how that happens? Whether a dinosaur or other ancient life ends up uh, fossilized in live position or how they get spread out like this?
Yep, it's all about deposition and transportation of those fossils. So when this assemblage was being deposited, the animal died somewhere else, probably sat out on the surface, subaerially being exposed, maybe got preyed upon by some meat-eating dinosaurs, or as that dinosaur decayed, things just fell apart. And then they were transported into this area, perhaps into a shallow pond. So washed in and got all jumbled up. Whereas animals that are articulated most likely got buried as a carcass with all of the soft tissues on, and then stayed buried um, long enough for it to become fossilized with everything together.
Which do you find more often?
Oh, certainly fine. Mostly just disarticulated bones, or few. If we do have some articulation to semi-articulation and close association, it's usually not whole dinosaurs, and so it's mostly those disarticulated jumbles.
So all this popular media around finding dinosaur fossils, all the coloring pages I did as a kid where the skeletons are laid out nice and clean. It's more like a game of pickup sticks than a puzzle.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, but I guess drawing and coloring on just jumbles of bones is not as exciting as coloring in full dinosaurs.
I guess not. Let's do another question. What have you got? How many different type of dinosaur fossils have you found?
Personally, in my career, hundreds, yeah. Many, many, many different ones. From this particular quarry, so far it just seems like this one animal, one dinosaur, so far with the fish and the croc and the bits of turtle. Um, but yeah, dinosaur fossils and other fossils in my personal career, you know, uh, thousands.
Thousands. Oh my gosh. How many do you know how many different species of dinosaur we recognize today?
Currently, there's around 200 different species, and it changes every day. So,
Right.
new things are getting named every day almost, and then other dinosaurs that we thought we knew are getting subsumed into other taxa. So, it's changing all the time.
How does the field work that you're doing today play into the work that then happens at places like museums like ours, and that might lead to something like the name changes and family groupings change?
Yeah, so I mean, it's all about that data collection. And so right now we're digging up this animal, and like I said, we're, you know, not much is known about the animals that lived here during the Cretaceous. So the more data we can gather, the better we're able to ask and answer questions about these dinosaurs, and um, we're better able to figure out how things were related and how evolution happened back then. And so the things we're doing here, collecting the data, bringing that back to the museum for preparation and study, then gets translated into writing those scientific papers and asking and answering these questions.
What's the process that the team follows to extract the fossils from the ground? I mean, we see you digging them up and brushing them off, but they've got to make their way back to Raleigh, North Carolina. What happens?
Yep. So some of the smaller bits of bone, those get wrapped up in a little paper, usually toilet paper pouch, get put in a sample bag after it's mapped. So we map everything in place, then we can start collecting those bones from the rock. And so those are for the little bits, the little chunks that we're finding. We can just pick those up, wrap them carefully, put them in a sample bag, label them, and set them aside. Things that are larger, we actually will put a plaster cap around them. And then again, those get labeled. But all this material, once everything's in either a sample bag, safely wrapped, or in a plaster jacket, um, then those will all get driven from here back to the museum, where we'll inventory everything we have, make sure that uh, all the list of everything we collected is accounted for, and then that stuff. Then we've got to open it up at the museum in one of our fossil prep spaces and start to work on it, and clean it up and get it all repaired and back together. And then that's when we can start, examining it and figuring out what it is exactly.
So you've just started working on this site. How long do you think it will take before you know if you've got all of the fossils from this area, bringing them back to the
Yep.
museum, continuing to work on this
Yep.
specimen?
So this particular seems like this particular quarry covers a much larger area than what we've been able to expose, and so I imagine we'll be working this particular quarry for a couple of years at least, working back into the hill, um, and exposing more.
How long will you be at this site this summer?
Yeah, we've got another week and a half out here, I believe, maybe a little bit longer, here in Utah. And then once we're finished here in Utah, then some of the crew leaves, and then I take some of the crew and we push farther north up into Montana, into a different time frame. So right at the end of the time of the dinosaurs, into rocks that are about 67 million years old.
How do you know how old these rocks are and that they have the different ages in these different locations?
Yep. So stand on the shoulders of geologists who have come before us or that are working with us. Um, and so we've got a uh, radiometric date the rocks themselves. So we look for things within the sandstones called zircons, or we look for volcanic ashes that we can get material out of that we can radiometric date to be able to give us an age on all of these formations.
Fascinating stuff. I love the way all of these different sciences work together to help us understand ancient life. It's really fun
Yeah,
and exciting
absolutely.
stuff. What's your favorite part of being out in the field, or do you prefer to be back here at the lab at the museum working on fossils?
Oh no, I much prefer to be out here. Um, just one of my favorite things, right, is discovery. Um, Being out here, uncovering bones that no other person has ever seen, is pretty fantastic. Being outside in nature, is wonderful. Sleeping out under the stars, the western skies here are fantastic. You can see the Milky Way, and so it's yeah, it's pretty fantastic. I much prefer to be out here.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. Another question that came in for you: how come most museums have field jackets sitting in storage, sometimes for 100 years?
Yep. Um, so it's all about having the ability to work on them and having either a volunteer base, people who are trained to work on these fossils. Um, and so we collect way more than we can work on in a particular year. Um, and it's all about the size of the workforce, and you know, we rely heavily on volunteers at the museum to help us do the things that we do, and so there's just not enough manpower or woman power to be able to do all this stuff.
There you go, everybody. Naturalsciences.org is the museum's website. Follow the links to volunteer, get trained up, and come and help us learn more about ancient life by working here in downtown Raleigh with us. And maybe, just maybe, Eric will take you into the field one day
Yeah, there's
if you do a
opportunity for
great job.
that.
If you do a great job. All right. Other questions here in the room for me, for Eric? Wave at us, let us know. All right, a couple of hands went up. We'll do these two, and then Eric will let you get back to your digging. Go ahead. The question is, how do you protect what you've exposed from season to season?
Yep. So in a particular season, we try to collect everything that we've uncovered for that season and not leave any bone in place. But if we have to leave something in place, then we'll put a protective field jacket on it of plaster and burlap to protect the rock and fossil. And then we'll put a tarp over that and bury everything back in. So once we're finished up here, we'll actually bury this whole site back in, and protect it for next year when we come back. But we really try to collect everything that we uncover in the single year.
Great stuff. Last question of the day. Have you been just working around the trees and brush, or have you removed any of the vegetation?
Yeah, so we've had to remove some vegetation. Again, those roots have come down and they're surrounding the bone. So for us to easily work this quarry, we've had to take out a couple of bushes that were right on top. Um, but we're not just ripping them out. We're sort of systematically going through and we're pruning all the little roots that are surrounding the bones and getting them out of the way. So we are doing it. We are taking out some vegetation, but we're removing doing it very systematically and slow.
So, Eric, you're a dinosaur paleontologist, part geologist, part horticulturalist, part chemist.
Yep. Yep. Most paleontologists are jacks of all trades. It's just the necessity of the work out here, especially when you're, miles away from civilization. You got to be able to do just about everything.
And you know how to work a rock saw.
That's right.
Amazing stuff. I'm always impressed. Well, Eric, thanks for taking the time out of your work, out of your field day to call in, give us an update, share with us some of the science and interesting stuff you've got going on. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's been really fun to talk to you all.
I think if I hold up the mic and you give him a great big round of applause, he might be able to hear it. Eric, thanks so much. Y'all stay safe. Be good out there.
Thank you.
And we will wish
Yep.
much more good weather for you.
Yeah. Hopefully Raleigh cools down soon for y'all too.
We're gonna get it, but that's okay. We'll be here in the museum hanging out in the air conditioning. You're out there in the elements. Thank you, Eric, for joining us, for participating. Thanks, everybody, for coming out to the museum today and for hanging out with us for Dino Dig Live. We'll be back here again in another couple of weeks where our paleontologists will be calling in with more updates. So check out naturalsciences.org for future programs and events like that and similar that we've got going on all the time. Naturalsciences.org. You can also follow the Museum of Natural Sciences on social media at Natural Sciences on all major platforms. See what we've got going on here all the time. And for those watching online, thanks for joining us, tuning in, dropping your questions and comments into the chat. We'll see you again for the next program. Everybody have a great Friday afternoon. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks very much. Eric, great job. Thank you.
Yep. My pleasure.